Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of learning how to design your dashboard. The second part is going to focus mainly on developing some tables that we're going to use and finishing off the rest of our interface. So here I'm just going to copy and paste an existing item from above. I'm just going to show you here using rulers why I'm going to use a spacing of about 30 pixels, because you'll notice that it essentially matches the gap that we have between the items above. Now I'm going to delete the items that I had inside the box previously, and I'm going to bring up my columns again using that Control L command and extend that to be twice the width of the box that we had before. Now I'm going to make it a bit taller for the moment, and that's going to give us a nice start with our box. Now I'm going to put this in the top left hand corner because this isn't one of our sort of highlight items from above, and this is going to be where we use our table that's going to show the user all the active jobs that they have. Now I'm going to copy and paste this and move it over to the right hand side because I'm going to add some icons in, and it's a lot easier using this icon font because it is a font. If I have an existing bit of text there, it'll simply replace that nicely. So I'm going to copy and paste that out again. I'm going to have one for search that will expand when the user clicks on it, and the other simply a settings one. So I'm just going to boot that up and put that in, pop them in a group, and now I want them to be gray. Now cheap way of getting that done is I'm just going to change the opacity to 30, and that will suit nicely, and making sure that it's also spaced 20 pixels out to match the active jobs. Now I'm going to get started on the table. I'm going to work on the header here first. That's going to be 30 pixels tall. It's going to be the same background as the table, which is white. I'm going to give it a border. Now I'm going to select that and make it an outside border. And then I'm going to select that and the background, and then I'm going to create a mask. And I'm going to do this so that we can't see the left and right hand sides of the box, so it looks like it natively extends all the way across. This is just what I like to think of as almost like a little cheap way of achieving that look. Now, all I've done here is I've copy and pasted the box and changed the width to be 160. This is the length that I feel is necessary for the first status indicator. So I'm going to just now do this over and over and break this top row up into various sections. Each section is going to have a label, and I'm just going to change the font, as you can see, to be 30% of the black opacity, all in capitals. And then I'm also going to add a filter icon. So again, I'm going to copy and paste that layer, put it 3 pixels to the right, come back in. I'm going to use Font Awesome and type in sort, and we'll get that nice up and down arrow, which will work perfectly. Now I'm going to pop all of these items into a group like so, and then simply copy and paste that a few times over. And this is how we're going to create that top row. We just need to change the widths depending on what the information is that we're going to display in that row. So this second one's going to be the address, so I'm going to need it to be a bit longer. Now skip over the rest of it because you can essentially make the widths whatever you'd like. I've made the next two assigned to, as in who's a staff member and the date that that job is due by. I'm just going to clean up some of the layers that I've got here while we're at it now. So I'm going to select all the groups above. I'm going to pop that into a group, and I'm just going to call that header table. Now for this second one, I'm going to change it to active jobs so that it matches the title. I'm going to call this icon group icons, and then I've called that one table, just so when we're going through it later, it's a bit easier to see what's what. Usually I take a lot more time to make my layers organized, but when we're looking to get this done on a timeline, I'm not going to bother for the moment. So one thing that I've noticed I do want to change is I actually don't want to keep borders between each of the layers, between each of the row items. So because we've got a rectangle behind each of these boxes, all I'm going to do is click on each of those rectangles as you saw and remove the border so that it looks like one long flowing box. And that's just going to make it a bit easier to scan, I feel, for a user. You may wish to keep the borders in there if you like, that's up to you. And all I've done here now is I've taken the second row and I've made it 52 pixels tall, and I've moved the content of each of the boxes into the center of that, and I've deleted the filter items because we won't be able to filter an individual row. Now all I'm going to do is I've changed the opacity to 100 because each of these items, it's the actual contents of the table. It's not some sort of header navigation. So I'm just going to put in a bit of information here that I'm going to make up for each one. Just making sure also that we're not doing it in capitals anymore. I want it to be nice and easy to read. So again, doing the same thing. The only thing that will be different will be status. I'm going to be adding a bar here that'll give a visual representation that's pretty easy to scan, I feel. So I'll keep the text, but I'm going to change it to 80%. I'm going to zoom in, make it a bit easier to see. I'm going to use a rounded rectangle. I'm going to try and make it an even number, so I'm going to just try 100 here for the moment. I'm going to set the fill to that purple that matches the logo, but I'm going to change the opacity to about 15. So that's to show the user that's the full 100% of the box. And then all I'm going to do is change, not the height, the width, sorry. Because I had 100, I'm going to make it 80, and that's 80%. Turn the opacity to 100, and you've got a nice visual indicator of how much has been done, how much is left to be going, and then that will be essentially it for status, just making sure that's aligned properly within the box. So that's our row done. Now all it's a matter of just copy and pasting this row a few times over to fill your data. I've changed some of the data in here as well so that you can get a kind of better idea of how things will be looking. What I want to add in here is some pagination on top of that. So what I've done is I've taken this rounded rectangle that we used for the legend above, and I'm just going to make that actually not blue no longer, but gray, so that our user can see that that's the active box. Just going to pop in 1 for the moment. I'm going to bold it, and we're just going to use 12 pixel font. I'm going to zoom out later and see if that looks too small. But for the moment, I'm going to align it in the box. That's 50%, not 100. That's 100. It looks fairly clickable to me, so I'm going to leave it like that. Move it to the left-hand side of the box, and then I'm going to space it 10 pixels out from one another. So for the items that are not active, I'm going to change the background to white so it doesn't look like there's a background, and I'm going to change the weight of the font back to regular. I'm going to just repeat this a few times over. So say, for example, we'll do 3 items, and then on the 4th, I'm going to do ... to symbolize that there's a bunch in between, and that we can then put the last number in the next box so that the user can see, okay, for example, I've got 18 pages of jobs. Trying to display all 18 might be a bit much, so I'd like to use that ... for them to symbolize just how many they have. So I'm going to group all of these items just after checking they're aligned properly, and I'm going to put it 20 pixels out from the corner, and that should do the trick there. Now we need to put something next to this box. It's looking a bit empty, so I'm just going to copy and paste the staff utilization graph that we had made earlier and align it with the top of those boxes. And I think what I'm going to do here is a sort of a request column. So I'm going to make it staff that need to request payments or request approvals for invoices and so forth. So all I'm going to do is just make sure the height that I have for that matches the height of the table, which is 520 pixels. If you want to take a different value, that's okay. The first thing I'm going to do is start to make the initial item, line item that we're going to use over and over again. So I'm going to put a circle in there to signify the photo of the person that is making the request. And then I'm just going to follow a fairly simple idea that will have the name of the user and then what it is they require. So here I've just made up John Centro, requires payment approval. And I need to change that header before I forget to staff requests. And again, 20 pixels out from the top, 20 pixels out from the left. And I'll just use the ruler to check that all lines up. So I'm going to make another line item underneath of this, which is in gray. So again, I'm going to change that opacity value, make it left aligned. And this is going to be what's the total, what's the job number, when a user looks at it, I want them to know what it is that they're trying to approve. So very quickly I can get an idea of, okay, I might not know what job 2142 is, but I might know the street address and I can see the total. So if I wanted to approve it right away because I know I've spoken to John earlier and I know he needs this, I can do so. I'm just going to bring in some buttons here that I had prepared earlier. They're pretty simple. I've got a 30 height and 120 width, so a 4:1 ratio. Jacked up the radius, and I'm using that purple, that is the logo purple, with a 12 Montserrat regular font in the middle. And then I've just made a grey one as well. That's for more information. So the point of this being, I would feel that most the administrator using this platform would know the staff that they have, so they would be able to make a quick call on whether they can approve it or not. And if they don't feel they know enough, they can click to more information, which will trigger a pop-up, and they can then ask for more information. So I'm just going to add a bounding box here that will house each line item. Again, using that mask feature just because I'm lazy, and it will remove the left and right hand sides of the borders, which I don't want to keep. Now I haven't pushed it over to the left far enough. You can see it's sticking out a little. So I just need to fix that. And I'm going to put everything back into a group again. Once I've got all that content in a group, you'll see that we get a nice red line letting us know that we've hit the middle of that box. And that's exactly what I want. So now that I've done that, I'm simply just going to copy and paste it over and over. And just to make things a little more realistic, I'm going to change some of this content really quickly. I'm going to add in a photo in each of these using the Unsplash tool provided via Crafts, which is a great plugin. I suggest you trying using it if you haven't already. So I've got photos, and I'm going to skip through here, but I'm just going to change some of the values and the names that I have. So in a nutshell, that is the main content within our dashboard. I'm going to whip together a quick footer, something really simple. I'm not a huge fan of footers in general, but I appreciate that there's some information we need to put in there. So I'm going to make it 50 pixels tall. I'm going to take the logo from the top, and instead of making it the same width as the header, I'm just going to match the columns that we have here. So I'm going to line it up with the left-hand side of the box. And then I'm going to copy and paste the same white box that I have down the bottom and divide it by 10. You can use these nice little mathematical equations as you go to make life easier. Just so I can have a consistent size box for each nav link. And then I'm going to just horizontally and vertically align that like so and pop it in a group. And now I can just copy and paste it over and over. I'm not going to bother showing you. You can make up the nav links as you like. The only difference being the last box, I'm going to use some line icons for their social media properties. So I'm going to put them in, and you'll see that we got something looking pretty nice, pretty simple, nothing too over the top. It doesn't distract from the task at hand. So in a nutshell, there is your dashboard. I'm going to add one little more piece of detail in here. That would be sort of the snack underneath of the nav bar here. A snack would be sort of an update that you'd have for a user. In this circumstance, I'm just going to make one up being, say, for example, the credit card failed so that they couldn't be charged. And you can use this for a range of things. So if there's a user that has, for example, just completed an action and it's successfully worked and they've been redirected to the homepage, you can put it in here. So all I'm going to put in is just a close button because the user might not want to stare at it for the whole time that they're using this screen. And then just a paragraph 14 pixel font, and just making sure that they look properly aligned. And I think I'll use purple here just so it stands out. And I'm just going to make up some wording here and then group all of those items. And there's your dashboard done. Now, I'm considering making another video and going into more detail about the other screens in this dashboard. If you want to see some more, please just let me know. For the meantime, I'm just going to make sure that this pixel, the top update is put 20 pixels from the top, and then all the graphs underneath are 20 pixels away from that snack as well. And there you have a dashboard. Thanks so much for watching. And again, if you have enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and like this video. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.